Hello and welcome into the live postcast. Welcome to Locked On Wolves. We're live following the Wolves' loss to the Milwaukee Bucks. Marney Gellner, Bally Sports North, will join the show to break it all down. The Locked On Wolves postcast starts right now.
You are Locked On Wolves postcast, part of Locked On Sports Minnesota. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Locked On Wolves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Ben Beecken. I'm the host of Locked On Wolves. Marney Gellner of Bally Sports North is with us, as always, on the live postcast to talk through Wolves Bucks. And, let's get right to it. Other than a few minutes of what really was an entirely uncompetitive stretch that once again took place in the third quarter, I actually didn't think that the Wolves played all that badly in general in this game. They were in the game for much of it. Again, they got down 22 in the third, but it was really kind of a 6 to 8 minute Bucks period of dominance. And then the Wolves got right back to within single digits. So there's a lot of places we could go with this. What's on your mind, Marnie? Where do you want to start?
Oh, man. Well, I think you're right, Ben. There was a point in the third when the Wolves got down 22, and that ended up being the biggest margin of the game. But it could have gotten ugly from that point. And I do feel like it was a step in the right direction that this team did not fold, that they kept fighting and clawing and actually made this a game until the final couple of minutes. But for the entire rest of the third quarter and the entire fourth quarter up until the final couple, it was still a game. Now, granted, Milwaukee was still in control, but it wasn't like it was a foregone conclusion. So there were different lineups. There were different guys. D'Angelo Russell sat for a long time, but it was, the Wolves were there, at least a fighting chance, a puncher's chance in the fourth quarter. So maybe against a championship type team, you look at that and say, well, that's not where we want to be, but could have been a lot worse.
Yeah, and you mentioned D'Angelo Russell sitting for a little while, and Jaden McDaniels did as well in the third quarter. There was a little bit of foul trouble in there too, but it was really more of, felt like Chris Finch was searching for the right lineup combination, and rightfully so. I mean, much has been made of the issues the starters have had as a unit. I think overall, though, backing up just a little bit, for the game, the first half, it felt like the issues were more inconsistent effort. That kind of spilled into the third quarter. I thought the offense generally flowed okay, and the defense was competitive for the most part. It just was a little, I guess, inconsistent. And then the lineup without D'Angelo Russell and without Jaden McDaniels was kind of the one that got the deficit from 22 down to 11 headed into the fourth quarter. It was Jalen Noel at point, which I thought was really interesting. Jordan McLaughlin didn't play at all in the third quarter, and D'Lo was taken out with about 8 minutes left in the quarter. So it was Jalen Noel, Anthony Edwards, Kyle Anderson. I guess Kyle Anderson really initiated the offense, but the backcourt was Noel and Anthony Edwards. Anderson, Kyle Anderson, Naz Reid, and Cat was the lineup that cut into the deficit. So I thought it was really interesting. Finch was obviously searching for the right combination, and he found something that worked to an extent. They were still, of course, down double figures, but kind of a really large lineup with Anderson at the 3 and Noel effectively playing the 1 was what got it done against the Bucks in the third quarter.
Yeah, and that's kind of been something that the Wolves have been doing this season, and Chris Finch is searching, trying to mix and match, trying to plug holes wherever they are, going to the right guy at the right time, the right combination at the right time. And tonight it was that Jaden McDaniels made a couple of really unfortunate passes where it almost looked like he just chest passed it to a player from the Bucks. And the time he got taken out in the second half, it was right into the hands of a Bucks player, led to a quick 2 on the other end. And that was kind of the end of it, timeout, and he didn't come back in. And I think that as much as Finch has tried to stick with, these are our guys. These are our highest paid players. This is our starting 5. These are the guys we know we're going to roll with. It is a really tough decision to figure out when you're going to play more of a Naz Reid and more Jordan McLaughlin because of the way they play with pace. And so I admire Finch for being willing to try to continue to mix and match and plug and play and to just see what he can find. And he's doing it with different guys in different positions every night. And for a team that is looking for consistency, that's not where you want to be, yet it's where they are because that's what's kind of forcing his hand. So I don't know how you kind of get out of this except by winning games and playing consistent. And it's kind of all tied together in my mind. Like, they're not playing consistently enough to have a consistent lineup, but the lineup isn't consistent because they're not playing together enough. And it just kind of keeps going round and round right now, and the Wolves just can't seem to get out of it.
Yeah, and you look at the game as a whole, and like Karl Anthony Towns and Anthony Edwards each had their moments where, Cat was kind of a lot of the offense early. Anthony Edwards kind of was, kind of found his stride middle of the game. And yet Rudy Gobert, this was his third consecutive game scoring just single digits. And we talked, last week about how the Wolves were making a concerted effort to get Rudy the ball. And this is, again, the starting unit searching and the Wolves searching for that overall chemistry with this new unit. And Gobert was almost being, at times, I don't think this is too strong, almost force-fed the ball. I made 15 field goal attempts in the opener, 10 in the second game of the season. He's only had double digits twice in the ensuing 7 games. He's now had single-digit scoring in 3 straight games, which never happened with Utah last year. He shot the ball once against Phoenix on Tuesday, and it was just 3 of 6 in this game. He did get double-digit rebounds after only having 7 and 9 in the last game. But, I don't know what to make of that because the Wolves it's not like they're going to be running sets to get Rudy shots very often. They've done that pretty rarely. But I think it's a little bit tied to guard play almost more than it is to Rudy's play himself. And I also think that the Rudy Cat chemistry has been pretty decent. And so I think almost a little bit of spacing, the D'Angelo Russell, Rudy Gobert pick and roll chemistry, and also the spacing with Ant and Gobert. We did see one really nice Edwards dump off pass to Rudy at the rim for an and one. I think it was in the third quarter when they were making that mini run. But it's been a really interesting last few games for Rudy.
Yeah, yes, it has. I agree. That one field goal attempt in Phoenix with DeAndre Ayton not playing in that game, that was a little bit shocking. Tonight, there were a couple of connections with Towns that I thought were really impressive. And you just kind of hang on to those like, yes, that's it. That's the one. That's what we're looking for. And so you can see that it's there, but there's Rudy looks different to me. And I saw him from afar at Utah. I've never been in the weeds, never been to Utah Jazz shoot-arounds and practices on a regular basis. So we've all just seen him, but seen plenty of him. And I know the Wolves plan to use him differently, but he looks different. And I'm sure it's the way he's playing in the position, and he's never played anywhere but Utah and with those players. So I get it. And I'm hoping it is just a matter of feeling the coach, the plays, the teammates, feeling all of that out, and then we'll get there. But the lack of, I don't want to say aggression, because you're right. There are times when the Wolves are almost force feeding it because they know we got to get this guy the ball, and he knows it, and it's just not happening within the natural flow of the offense. So maybe that's the first thing that has to happen. And maybe it's just as simple as like a night when he gets like 6 offensive rebounds and all 6 lead to put back dunks or easy layups. And like that just kind of starts unlocking things. Because I feel like even that hasn't come easy this season for Rudy Gobert. And in years past, it's almost like he's just standing there and the ball falls to him because he's that tall and he's in that good a position. And those kinds of bounces haven't happened much at all yet this season.
Yeah, it does feel like the Wolves aren't getting as many fortuitous bounces as you'd like them to get. And who knows? I mean, teams kind of make their own luck in some sense when it comes to 50-50 balls, and the Wolves haven't been ultra competitive in those categories. I mean, Jordan McLaughlin, right, is case in point. Like there were a couple of those tonight. It was just noticeable where there's a loose ball and McLaughlin's diving for the ball, and he's oftentimes one of only a couple Wolves players that are doing that. And I think that it's the old cliche of making your own luck, but I think that all plays into it for sure. All right. A couple more things I want to get to. First, though, let's talk about our title sponsors from the show today. And that is, of course, our friends over at Prize Picks. If you took Karl Anthony Towns points over tonight, I don't actually know what the number was over there, but he had a good night. Same with Anthony Edwards. Giannis always has a good night, so you'd have been in good shape there. Prize Picks is really easy. You just pick 2 to 5 players and predict whether or not they'll score more or less than their Prize Picks projection in really any category. It's not just points and rebounds. You can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. You're not competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections available, and you could pick any sport. You can do cross-sport matchups. You can do college football and NBA in the same night. It's really, really easy to use. Download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. If you're a first-time user, you can get a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. If you deposit $100, Prize Picks will give you $100. Don't forget to enter the promo code Locked On at sign up for an instant deposit match of up to $100. All right. Let's talk a little bit about we talked about how early in the game it was a little bit of effort, some defensive issues. Late in the game, Giannis kind of started to take over, but I still felt like the Wolves defense was competitive. There was the big Naz Reid block that led to a breakaway dunk. There were a couple other possessions where the Wolves actually did a decent job on Giannis, forced him into some tough shots, or they fouled him and he missed free throws. He made like 7 of his first 8 and then missed, I think, 8 of his last 10 or something to close the game. Giannis did. So the Wolves had the window was ajar for the Wolves to climb through at the end of the game. And it kind of shifted from some of these really broad struggles. I felt like they were playing solid. They were just missing open shots. And that ended up being the story, I think, down the stretch. And it certainly wasn't the reason they were down in the first place, but it's the reason that they couldn't make the full comeback was I think they were they missed like their last 6 or 7 threes or something. And everybody was culpable. Like basically everyone in the starting lineup, Jalen Noel, all those guys were getting open looks at threes and just simply missing them down the stretch.
Yeah. D'Angelo Russell had 2 from the left wing right in front of the Wolves bench on the same possession.
Yep.
D'Angelo's shooting a career low from 3 right now. You go up and down that list. Karl Anthony Towns is like in the low 30s, and he's a career 40% three-point shooter. It is across the board that the threes are not falling. And just mathematics would tell you that the tide has to turn.
Yeah.
Like that has to even out. It can't, not every guy can shoot below their average for an entire season. So I don't know what happens or how it happens, but something is going to unleash, and that 3-point percentage is going to even itself out a little bit, but there's no real rhyme or reason as to why it is the way it is right now. Even Chris Finch after the game was talking about the looks, and he's like, they're good looks from 3 for the most part. They're just not going down.
Yeah, and that's a great point. I mean, not only are they not going down, the Wolves aren't shooting as many as they did in this game. They shot, more in line with what they'd like to. But last year they were number 1 in 3-point attempt rate, and they're like middle of the pack right now coming into this game. So the attempts need to go up, and hopefully we start to see that. But like you said, especially in the case of Towns, Anthony Edwards has been one of the more consistent shooters from 3. Jalen Noel's number is going to go up. Taurean Prince shot great early on. He's had a couple quieter games more recently. D'Angelo Russell, he's always been at least a league average type 3-point shooter. And across the board, he's struggled the last several games. I mean, that's a whole other topic. But I do think that is cause for optimism in terms of the shooting is at some point it's going to bounce back. And in this game, if they had made a couple of those threes down the stretch, you're talking about a 2-possession game in the final minute.
Yeah.
And the starters don't go to the bench and it's actually a close late situation. So, let's talk briefly about D'Angelo Russell. He only played 27 minutes in this game. It wasn't in foul trouble and didn't even commit a foul in this game. Just a really rough start. And then the third quarter got off to another rough start for D'Lo. Finished with 9 points, 4 assists, 3 turnovers, shot just 3 of 15 and 2 of 8 from 3. And that's not too different from what we've seen from him lately. And it feels like now we're kind of in this loop that I think we saw at one point kind of early mid last season where D'Lo's not playing well and the team's not playing well. And he's an easy scapegoat because if the offense isn't running smoothly, you point at the point guard. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. But it also feels like he's a scorer, right? He's a score first mindset. He's going to try and shoot his way out of a slump, but then the Wolves offense isn't flowing like it needs to. So I don't know where they go from here. And clearly Finch had other guys running the offense at times in the second half, and it actually did work better. But what happens next with D'Angelo Russell?
Well, hopefully what happens is D'Angelo has a hot shooting night, maybe even tomorrow night against Houston. That would be very helpful. I feel like, as strange as it may sound for D'Angelo to have a night where he goes 3 of 15, that putting up the 15 shots is still a good sign, in the fact that he still has enough confidence in his shot that he's still going to let it fly and believe that this has to turn itself around, because he's too good of a player, too good of a shooter, has too long of a track record to continue like this. So I'll take the side that says, even on that possession that I was talking about in the fourth quarter, he's in the left wing and he put up a 3-pointer, didn't go in. He got the ball back. I think we went pass or something like that. He gets the ball back, puts up the exact same shot. Yes, he missed it again, but to me, that's him going, God dang it, I know this is a good shot. I know I can make this shot. I'm going to take it again. And I feel like he needs to just keep taking it as long as it's a good shot. It's the right shot. It's within the rhythm of the offense, which both of those were. That's just an example of keep letting it fly. It cannot continue like this. And I will say this, to have gone through what he went through last year in that extended slump, he shot his way out of it and he turned his way out of it. And D'Lo's in a contract year. So nobody wants to have a better season for D'Angelo Russell than D'Angelo Russell. So he has every motivation in the world to get this right. And I will say this, Ben, too. After the game, we're doing the post-game show. D'Angelo Russell is back there out on the court shooting after the game for whatever it's worth. He's not going to just go home and sulk about it. So he's trying to keep putting them up, and hopefully they start falling in the games.
Yeah, and I think he's still, you said track record. I think he does have the track record of being a good scorer. And we know the last time he had a contract year, it was his all-star season. And I think there's too much talent on this team for him not to eventually see some success, just kind of playing off of some of the other guys that are on the roster. The Wolves are right back at it again, less than 24 hours from now at this point, taking on the Houston Rockets, who remain one of the only, I think, one of two one-win teams, maybe the only one-win team at this point in the league. So a winnable game Saturday night. I mean, obviously the Wolves need this win. They've lost 3 in a row. But we'll of course be live again following Wolves Rockets on Saturday night, as we are after every Wolves game this season, here on the Locked On Sports Minnesota YouTube feed. And the audio from this will be on all the Locked On Wolves feeds afterwards. Myself and Marney Gellner from Valley Sports North. Be sure you follow and subscribe to Locked On Wolves for all things Timberwolves. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.